whatever your situation is, it's your advantage. Okay. And it can be anything. So whenever most people have a list of things they think are their disadvantages, and they're usually the things that are your biggest strengths. When people come to me for ghostwriting services, or they're telling about I'm helping them write their first book, they'll say things to me like, well, I think my life is really boring. The only story I have is one time I was on a truck that jackknifed and I was sliding towards a gas station and I saw a family sitting in their van right in front of me and I wondered if I was about to blow up the gas station. Is that interesting? And I said, well, have you ever seen a movie? Because you've literally described the opening scene of every good movie.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Transform Sales Podcast. Today, I am so delighted to have Jonathan Green here with me. How are you, Jonathan?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm so excited to be here. Glad we're having a chance to chat finally.
Yes, me too. Let me tell you guys a bit about Jonathan. He is the best-selling author of ChatGPT Profits, Serve No Master, as well as over 3 other books. He is a celebrity ghostwriter and an artificial intelligence expert who now lives on a tropical island in the South Pacific. He has turned being fired during a blizzard into a thriving online business. So, Jonathan, tell us a bit about how you started your career to how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I always dabbled in entrepreneurship but never realized it from a very young age. I always thought, oh, entrepreneurship's for people whose parents were entrepreneurs. You can't really learn it in school because it's antithetical to educational system, right? Because it's not educational system is about sitting in class, listening to lessons, doing what everyone else is doing. Whereas entrepreneur, you have to go your own path and really make your own decisions and take a leadership role. So it's a very, very different path. And I kind of fell into it when I hit 30, I was like, I don't want to do what other people tell me to do anymore. I want to have control of my destiny. So losing my job was really the best thing that could have happened to me. It forced me to make the decision I'd always been hesitating to make. So I always thought, oh, entrepreneurship's not really for me, even though I keep starting my own businesses. So the first thing when you become an entrepreneur and you take control of your destiny is you realize that you only make money when you bring in customers, when you bring in clients. So you're in complete control of your destiny. You don't have to split the rewards if you bring in a big sale, but you also don't make anything if you don't bring in a sale. So it's high risk, high reward. You're on that trapeze from day one and there's no net.
Wow. So having something that most people would consider tragic in being let go from your job, that really is what propelled you into entrepreneurship. So there are a lot of people who are in that place, whether they've been laid off or they've decided to leave their job, and they're wondering, should I look for something else or should I step out on my own? What advice would you give to your younger self in that moment?
Yeah, 90% of people should find another job. 10% of people shouldn't. And you just have to figure out which category you're in. If you're someone who thrives on the danger, who likes being in the high riskness of it, because it's a lot more stress, because if you fail, you don't get anything. Whereas if you're an employee and you do a bad job and they fire you, you still get paid your set. You still get paid and sometimes even a severance, even though it's all your fault, right? Whereas if you're on your own, it's all risk, all reward. So that's really the trade-off. So you have to see how that makes you feel inside. If that makes you feel like, what a nightmare, that's the worst thing I've ever heard, then you should look for a job. If you say, that sounds exciting, I know I can make it happen because I believe in myself, I know I'll do whatever it takes, then you're an entrepreneur. That's really the difference. And I can always tell when someone's an entrepreneur or not, because I ask a few questions like, what would you do, right, to make your business work? And the things that you'll do if you're an entrepreneur, you'll do anything. You'll do whatever it takes. When things have been tight, I've taken jobs from my friends, which doesn't feel very good. You take a job for your friend and they don't pay you very well because they know you're in a tight situation, but you do whatever you got to do to survive. I was one time paid $800 for a project that they then resold for $1 million. So did that feel good? No, but I made my rent that month. So you have to be a very particular type of person. And that's the great measurement of like, well, you do whatever it takes. And when I first tried to meet with an accountant, she was like, how much money to make? I was like, I don't know. What do you do when you run out of money? I just make more. And I still live that way 13 years later, which is crazy, but I have the ability to rainmake for my own business. Whatever business I'm doing, I always find clients. I always manage to raise the money. I know how to attract the right type of clients. And it's 99% belief in yourself and 1% the skill set afterwards.
Whoa, we have a lot to unpack. There are a lot to unpack. I really like that 90 because most people think it's the 1090. Like, no, most of us should be owning our own businesses and we should all have our little side hustle, or we should all break away from the corporate realm. But what you're saying is right. I myself am a single mom and I understand that I am the company and my children are dependent on me. So if I don't make the money that I need this month, then there's nothing else. And I have to be okay okay with that. So I have that burning desire inside myself. Like, I will get scrappy. I will do whatever it takes. Right. And some people don't have that. So if you're that person and you're like, I'm scrappy, I'm ready to take the risk, what are some tips that you would tell someone to have those first steps of stepping into entrepreneurship?
So the first step is really get your first client. A lot of people get caught in paralysis by analysis, and they'll spend years doing research and reading books and saying everything has to be perfect, and there's no motivation. So when you have your first client, when someone gives you money, it puts this massive amount of pressure on you to deliver. So when I first started, I built my first website. It was terrible. It was unreadable. It was blue letters on a black background, which nobody could read. I chose the worst colors for the human eye. It was impossible to read, and it looked so amateur hour. But I started putting up ads. I put this up on a Saturday. I had my first client handing me a check on Thursday. People would say to me all the time, like, well, my website needs to be perfect. And I would say to clients, because people would say, why did your website look so terrible? I said, listen, if you want, I will use that time you pay me this month to work on my website, make my website look great. And then once I finish that, then I'll go back to work on yours. They always choose no. I say, that's why. I say, I'm so busy delivering for clients that I don't need a website. The best of the best, like, do you think the best of anything in the world, the best private chef in the world has a website? No. So the best of the best don't have time for that. I said, I have a website just because one kind of exists. I have a website right now for a celebrity ghostwriting. It got deleted. I made a mistake with my host the other week and I deleted it and I had to reinstall a fresh install of WordPress. I didn't care. I'd never built anything on it. I'd never written a blog post because I don't have a problem acquiring clients. It just exists. And I'm like, oh, one day I'll work on it. I've been saying that for 5 years. So that anything can turn into a reason people should hire you. If you have a really nice website, look, I'm an expert. Look how good my website is. You have a terrible website? Yeah, I don't have time for my website. I'm so busy dealing with clients. You have a huge team behind you. Listen, I run a team that's available 24/7. We're worldwide. You always have someone working on your project. If you're a solo operation, you say, listen, you want to work with a big company? Great. If you like slow moving trains and poor decisions and you want to be optimizing for SEO from 20, work with them. If you want someone agile who can make quick decisions, who can make quick changes when anything happens, whatever kind of service or product you're delivering, then you want a one person operation because they're fast to change. I don't need someone's permission to change the logo or change the colors. I could do things quickly. So whatever your situation is, it's your advantage. Okay. And it can be anything. So whatever, most people have a list of things they think are their disadvantages, and they're usually the things that are your biggest strengths. When people come to me for ghostwriting services or they're telling about, I'm helping them write their first book, they'll say things to me like, well, I think my life is really boring. The only story I have is one time I was on a truck that jackknifed and I was sliding towards a gas station and I saw a family sitting in their van right in front of me and I wondered if I was about to blow up the gas station. Is that interesting? And I said, well, have you ever seen a movie? Because you've literally described the opening scene of every good movie. You've just described a Fast and the Furious scene. How is that? I want to know what happened. I know you're alive because you're telling me the story and I still want to hear more. Another person said to me, well, my first time I went at parachuting, we went halfway up, the door on the plane broke and the engine broke. So we were too low to jump out, but the plane was going to crash. Is that interesting? So whenever someone starts off with, I think my story is boring, I know it's going to be amazing. Whatever you think your disadvantage is, you're young, because people will say, oh, I'm too young. And then 6 years later, they go, I'm too old. I'm too short. I'm too tall. There's always people who have the exact opposite excuse for inaction. And that's really the difference is that when you're an entrepreneur, you go, this is my opportunity. Whatever makes me unique becomes my leverageable asset. And then you can start to succeed very quickly because every time someone comes at you with a, well, you don't have a lot of experience, you go, yeah, that's why you want to work with me. I don't have a bunch of bad habits. It's an easy answer because you have a confidence in yourself. There's this amazing scene in an Indonesian action movie where a guy is really short and he's a great fighter. He goes, yeah. He goes, you're so big, you have such a disadvantage. There's so much more of you for me to hit. It's like normally small in a fight's a disadvantage. The guy's like, I've got an advantage. You're huge. I got tons of you to work with. So whatever you see, that can be your leverageable advantage. So that's really the place I came from and I started from was thinking, what can I turn every time something is not me explaining why it's not a disadvantage. It's always like me explaining why that's an advantage. And then that's how I just began my sales journey.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And, as a new entrepreneur, you're right. So many people are like, I have to get all my social media perfect and get a perfect logo and get a website. And, people who've been in business for a while, they're like, yep, I need a website. And it's kind of like a landing page, right? It's a calling card, if you will. People don't always find you on your website. It's about the work that you put out and focus on really taking your services, your products, whatever. I love telling people who are stepping out of corporate and into the their own business, I say the thing that annoyed most of the people that you did when you were working, that thing is probably going to make you a lot of money, because that thing annoyed them because it was unusual. It was different. It was something that they hadn't heard of before. And so use those things that people may seem as annoyances or that you always try to hide that may be called your weaknesses, and play up on them because they're actually your differences.
Yeah, whatever makes you different is the reason people should hire you. Whatever you do, it's a commodity. There is no service that I offer that I'm the only person in the world. Whenever someone tells me they're the only person in the world that does something, I'm very skeptical, right? There's more than one of almost everything. So it's very unlikely that you're the only person. So the reason people hire me over another writer or another AI expert is if they like me or not. It's my personality, because that's the only thing that's different, my life story. I'm not the first person who's thought about writing a book for a person, right? I didn't invent other ghostwriters exist. I didn't invent AI. It exists. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last AI coach and trainer or author in that space. So once you let go of that, you start to realize the only thing that's unique is your identity as a person, your story, your journey. And we hire people we like way more than experts. Every one of us can think of someone we met that was an absolute expert that we secretly hated and go, I would never work with this person. We've all seen a course or someone on YouTube who has really good information. You go, I would never buy from this person because their voice is like nails on a chalkboard. I do not like them. It doesn't matter the quality of the information. And if those examples don't resonate, here's one more. If you're whichever news channel you watch, if you see an expert on that channel and then they go to the channel you don't watch, do you follow them, or do you stay with the channel that has the anchor you like and just see what the next expert is? So you don't follow experts. Nobody switches channels. Nobody. So we don't care about that. The things that we think matter, just think to what you would do if you were a customer. Do you care if the company you hire has a logo? The FedEx logo has a secret arrow in it. If you look really closely, there's a hidden arrow in the X. Nobody cares. It's clever, but nobody's ever noticed. You know what that means? It doesn't matter. Nobody hires you because of your logo. One thing I run into in books a lot, people go, oh, should I get this person to write my foreword? And I say, let me ask you a question. You're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. How many books have you bought because of the foreword? Oh, zero. Also me. Also everyone. That's how you know it doesn't matter. If you've never made a buying decision because of a factor, then your customers won't. I've never bought something because of the color of a website or because of the logo. I couldn't tell you the logo of the 10 people that I admire the most. I just couldn't. So once you start thinking that way, you go, what do I respond to? And I can tell you. So I buy a lot of products from women. I know if I go to a woman's website, I'm going to see long socks. She's going to be drinking coffee or tea in front of a window from a large mug, and there's going to be a cat. And the colors are going to make me feel warm. I know if you go to a website for me or any of the other men in my circle, it's going to feel cold, robotic. There's going to be a lot of pictures of the future. It's going to be a lot of like sharp lines. There's no warmth. So I can tell from a website, I'm like, yeah, the information might be good, but I don't feel warm here. And I'm guilty of it. So I'm just as guilty. So I am aware of these things. So I know what is missing. That's why I tend to buy products from women like that, because I'm like, I need to add more warmth to my marketing. So that's what I want to add to it. I already know how to be cold and calculating and very robotic. So think about how you shop. Which grocery store do you go to? Why do you choose it? Why do people go to Trader Joe's? It's not pricing, right? Because it's not the cheapest in town. So sometimes we think that, in fact, the default we think of is, oh, I need to compete on price. It's the worst thing you can do. Instead, you want to compete on experience, or you say things like luxury. So I learned this lesson from a friend of mine. He was a dentist, and one day he released a press release and called himself a celebrity dentist. And what he would do is have people take pictures of him walking down the street doing this, like blocking his face, and then send it into all the tabloids. And on a slow news day, which they all have, he got published 2 or 3 times. You go to his dentist's office, those pictures, those spreads were on the wall of his office. So he became celebrity dentist because he just kept telling everyone that. And he acted like paparazzi were following him. Paparazzi have a lot of free time. When there's no celebrity around, they'll take your picture for like $1. And he got some paparazzis to send in pictures of him, and that's all it took. And so then he had his name in the newspaper with celebrity dentist in front of it. I said, oh my gosh, that's why when people say, why are you a celebrity ghostwriter? I'm like, well, I started saying it and then it became true. When you can describe your job in 2 words very quickly, people are more likely to hire you. I once met a guy who I had to ask 8 times to find out what his job was. And his job was cool. It wasn't a bad one. He goes, I'm a writer. I go, oh, that's amazing. What do you write? Books, newspaper articles. What kind of writing do you do? He goes, oh, music. And by the 8th question, he goes, oh, I'm actually a songwriter who's written songs for, and then he named like 6 really famous bands. And I was like, why did you bury that? Like, you buried the lead. And it made me immediately distrust him. And I go, if you look, I also had a friend who worked in a slaughterhouse. He had to kill 1,000 pigs a day. That's a horrible job. But he didn't hide it. He told everyone, yeah, I work in a slaughterhouse, the only job I could get. At least he was able to tell you what his job is. I was like, okay, at least I trust you. But when someone's can't explain what they do, it's very hard for people to hire you because they don't know what you do. Why should I hire you? I don't know what I'm hiring. So that's the place you want to start from. That's, at least from my experience, is that at least be able to say what you do. The less words you can do it in, the better. If you can do it in 5 words, great. 4 words is better. 3 words is better than that. If you do it in 1 word, that's even amazing. You don't need 2 words. If people, what do you do? I'm president. If you're the president of the United States, you don't need 2 words, right? You don't need extra words like top president or best-selling president or celebrity president. You could just be president. But that's a way to think about it. And a lot of entrepreneurs make this mistake. They tell everyone they're a CEO. Nobody trusts you when you're a CEO and you answer your own phone. So it's much better to say executive vice president. If you're a one-person operation, then people think, wow, that must be a huge company. That's why everyone who works at Hertz is in the management trainee program. They're all management trainees, whether you're washing cars or working at the counter, because language is very powerful.
Wow, you gave us some really good gems there. And I think the key one for me, the takeaways are you are an expert really in whatever you do. And it's up to you to define what expert means and allow people to step into your world. Like, for instance, I never call myself a founder or a CEO. I call myself the chief sales officer, right? Because that's what I do. I am the person that I help people with their sales. And so really understanding what the needs are of your clients, your customers, and how you come alongside them and solve those problems, it helps you reverse engineer into what you do and how you serve them. So I noticed that you have this book on ChatGPT Profits and you're an AI expert. So tell us a little bit more about how you stepped into the world of artificial intelligence and what you do with it.
Sure. So a year ago, I noticed a lot of content about coming out about AI, a lot of videos, and I'll watch a video and go, they would say, oh, you can do A, but you can't do B. ChatGPT can do this, but it can't do that. And I would just go, I bet I can get it to do that. Someone said like, oh, you can get it to write the outline, but it won't write the entire book for you. And I said, challenge accepted. I bet I can. And I'm always trying to push the limits on what it can't do. Or they'll say, oh, this takes 13 steps. And I'll go, I bet I could do it in 12. So I'm always looking to shorten the process or improve it. And I was doing that for myself so many times. And then when I saw what other people were teaching, I was like, it's so far behind what I do that I have to put this in a book because people need this skill. So that's why I wrote the book, because a lot of the other books out there they're not good. And I was annoyed by that. I thought I was kind of done. I've written over 300 books. I was like, I don't really need to write another book. But then I saw what was out there and I said, this is not good. There needs to be at least one book that's I can point to as the perfect template. It's like, this is the example. And it only has prompts that I'd used over the previous 6 months in my actual business to make actual money. There's no theoretical prompts in there. And you can always see what I wrote and what ChatGPT wrote back. So it's really designed to be the instruction manual that we all wish AI came from. I was shooting a new demonstration video today with another AI platform. I said, oh, it's cool. They also have no onboarding. They've all agreed to give us a terrible welcome experience. So we go, here, welcome to our new AI software. Figure it out for yourself. That's how they all make us feel. And I don't know they've all agreed to do it, but it feels like they must have had a meeting, because why do they all do it? Nobody thought, what if we give customers a good experience? So that's really why my job is necessary, is because there is no instruction manual. So that's what I created.
And so tell us about the part of the book that's called ChatGPT, the profits piece. How are your clients really using artificial intelligence to help boost their profits?
So there's so much out there that's not useful. There's a lot of really cool stuff. Every single week, someone puts out a video of an artificial intelligence new video tool, and they all make me dizzy. They're like, look at this. This could be how you make a new movie. And they show me a 3-second clip. And when you think about how many 3-second clips you need to make a movie, an hour and a half movie, you need thousands of those. You might as well draw it by hand, old school Disney animation style, because you're creating 3-second clips. It would take you so many years to make a movie. By the time you finish, the technology will have changed. I hate all of that. It's cool, but it's not useful. At the other end of the spectrum, there are some really technical things you can do using Python and SEO agents and ChatGPT agents and connecting them with open source software. That's too technical for most people. So I want to be the middle of the road, which is I only talk about what's useful and what's implementable. So it's really about the 80-20. So I focus on that, which is here's the 20% that's most likely to move the needle on your business. The second thing is that I'm an entrepreneur. So I only teach entrepreneurship. So I teach people how to use this tool to generate more revenue. Now, the main thing is, and really the two biggest places where I help people, is acceleration. The reason most people fail with an online business is either they move too slow or too fast. They either get really stuck on a bad idea and they won't let go. And sometimes someone will say, hey, I just made $1,000. I'll say, well, how many hours did you put into the project? And they're like, 74. I'm like, you're making 14 cents an hour, right? I've been working on this for 18 months. That's a terrible ROI. And when we don't do our numbers right, we say, and I'm like, well, how much money did you spend on courses? I spent $5,000 on a course. I made $1,000. I'm like, you're down $4, right? The casino must love you if you think you're winning after you've lost that much money, right? Then you're smiling as they take away 80% of your revenue. So you have to start from that place of, okay, what causes me to make mistakes? So if you're someone who gets stuck on a bad idea too long, it's the sunk cost fallacy. You're playing blackjack at 2 a.m, just trying to get back the money you've already lost. The other danger is the person who chases the shiny object, right? Every time there's a new course, they buy it. Every time there's a new method. A great example of this is like 2 years ago, every single coach lost their job and suddenly everyone was a coach on Clubhouse. And I remember one person said to me, I'm not a coach because I want to be, I'm a coach because my clients demand it. And I said, yeah, but you don't have any clients. So you definitely shouldn't say that. That's a crazy person talking. You can't say that. That's too extreme. Nobody reaches out to someone like a crowd found someone on the street and all made a circle around and said, you need to be a coach. We all need your help. You're not a miracle, right? But because I was like, real coaches who have a lot of clients don't talk like that. It's too extreme. So in either case, with AI accelerating you, I could test an idea in one day. I don't have time to become emotionally invested. If it's a bad idea, I abandon it. If it's a good idea, I can double down the next day. So it really allows me to be agile and be faster. So that's the first really big advantage, is that you can be quick. The second thing is that it lowers the barrier to entry. You don't have to know copywriting. AI will do it for you. It won't be tier 1 copywriting, but it'll be a solid B+. You no longer need to know how to do programming. I've written pieces of software in languages that I didn't even know existed. All of these abilities are now available to you. When I first started out, to make a one-page website, you had to do HTML, I had to use Dreamweaver, and I had to put all the things in place. It was really hard to move things around, and it was very, very hard. Now I can build the same type of page in less than 3 minutes using modern tools. So the technological need, the need to understand computers, all of that's gone. So you need to be an expert in every single category. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to be an expert in everything. Not anymore. So really, those are the biggest things that I teach. The book is more of a menu than it is meant to be read from the beginning to the back. It's you read the introduction and I say, listen, what skill do you want to learn first? Jump to that chapter. You want to learn how to write blogs faster? Great. You want to learn social media? Skip to that chapter. You need help studying for a test? Go to that section. And when you approach it that way, now you can get the result very quickly. So what I really help people do is save time. When you get efficient with AI, you can save about 40% per week. So you can get 3 days, you can get 5 days of work done. That means you can either make 40% more money or have a 4-day weekend every single week. Both of which I love. I'd love to have every Friday and Monday off. It's awesome. So you can have that ability because you're faster. And with how slow people are adopting AI, you can still be a first mover advantage. You can still be the first person in your office that learns it, the first person in your area, the first person in your niche or marketplace. So there's a huge opportunity right now for people that take advantage and just become faster. And a lot of people think it's a fad. And that means there's an opportunity for people to realize it's not. When they brought out when calculators became affordable, graphing calculators in the early 70s became affordable. A lot of teachers said you cannot let students have these. Students can have calculators, then they'll never learn math. Okay, they can have them, but they can't have them during the test. When I was in high school, you did your answers on the graphing calculator and then showed the graphing calculator to the teacher. So it went from this is cheating to this is mandatory. You couldn't take the math class unless you had this particular type of calculator. So we go through that. So right now, AI is considered cheating. Oh, AI wrote your exam paper. Within 5 years, they'll be like, we only want exam papers written by AI because an AI is going to grade them anyways. So that's how much technology changes, and that's how fast it changes. You would never hire an accountant that says, oh, I use an abacus. I don't use computers. I keep all your records in my head. There's nothing written down. You go, oh, I'm definitely not hiring you. So it goes from, oh, that's the person who's got a cool tool to it's unacceptable to not have that tool. So that's what's going to happen with AI. And that's really what I help people. And it starts with, what's the thing you do every week that takes a lot of time and doesn't take a lot of attention? Let's move that off your plate. If it saves you 5 hours a week, let's just say it takes 1 hour a day. You get that 5 hours a week back because now the AI is doing that tool. Next week, spend those 5 hours learning your next skill. If you have employees, look at your employee and go, which of my employees, when I pay everyone, when I do payroll, who am I the most annoyed about paying? Replace their job with AI first.
I love it. 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 As an entrepreneur, business owner, and a person who loves trying new tech, really learning how to use it and learning how to spot which tools out there, kind of like you said, are using AI to benefit you and the ones that aren't using it to benefit you, that are more so just trying to take your money, I think is an absolutely essential skill for all business owners to have. So as we wrap up, the final question that I have for you is, in your professional career, you've gone from being a corporate employee to being an entrepreneur. Is there a person or an experience that has impacted the way that you show up today?
Yeah, we all have those defining moments in our lives, and I have bunches of them, right? It's usually when you have a life and death situation, you realize what really matters to you. So having been through a dramatic life or death situation, when people say, oh, aren't you nervous about this and nervous about that? I'm like, it doesn't even move the needle. Like it just doesn't. Compared to almost being murdered, everything else kind of doesn't matter. So it resets your entire scale. And once you get to that place, when you think about how much things really matter, like, oh, I missed the rent this month, it's not really that big of a deal compared to how much worse things could be, right? There's a much bigger scale. So once you do that, then the fear leaves you and you become capable of anything. So for me, those are the biggest experiences, my life being in danger, which has happened probably far too many times. That's really what kind of makes everything else a lot easier. That's why I don't get flustered, have good days or bad days. I don't worry about money, not because I'm a genius, but just because it's like, it's hard to care about that when you've been through things that are much, much worse.
Well said. Great final words. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing with us, sharing your time, your talent, and your expertise. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
And that was another episode of the Transform Sales Podcast. Remember, in all that you do, transform your sales. Until next time.